because the NBA is about to kick off. Hopefully I get this out before the NBA season starts, but it's right around the corner. This is a brand new podcast episode. I haven't recorded a podcast episode since basically the Bucks won the championship. I was busy over the summer. Things didn't turn out the way I wanted it to do as far as getting more podcast content out, but I'm glad to be starting again. I don't know if this is going to be season 2 yet because it's kicking it in the second half, and like I said, this is the beginning of the season. So we started in March, so I might wait till March of 2022 to actually start the second season. But let's get into this podcast episode. This episode, I'm calling this East Coast, West Coast beef. And this isn't the traditional East Coast, West Coast beef that we're used to hearing about in stereotypes of, in the 90s with like the rap culture beef, East versus West. This is actually beef within each conference. Beef in the East, beef in the West. So that's what we're looking at here with this. So we have 4 different things we need to cover here. We're going to cover Brooklyn, and the big K over there in Brooklyn, not Kevin Durant, but Kyrie Irving. Then we're going to go to LA, hit up the Lakers and company with LeBron, and Philly back to the East, and then once again to the West with Portland and Damian Lillard. So let's get into Act 1. And once again, the way I used to do this, I'm D, by the way. I'm doing this solo by myself, one man, and I'm going to try to make the best out of this, have some fun with this. There's not going to be any feedback, so if you want to leave feedback, just go ahead and put it in the comments, or if you're listening to this on Spotify or Anchor.fm, you can hit me up on Twitter or Instagram. Instagram might not make sense for the podcast content, but put it on Twitter. Hit me up there. I'll be glad to chat it up, or, if you got any ideas, do a podcast about that. So without further ado, let's get into act number 1. This is Kyrie Irving, and we all know the situation here. And I would like to start off by saying that I might have to put a poll on Twitter. So go to Twitter and look for us, KISH YZ, KISH_YZ. So, hit us up there. I'm going to try to put a poll up. Don't know how long the poll lasts. When I get this up, I'll try to put out as long as I can out there. And I want to ask, will Kyrie be remembered more for taking the shot or not taking the shot? And taking the shot, what I mean by that is the shot that obviously he took in the 2016 NBA Finals when he was playing for the Cleveland Cavaliers with LeBron James and Kevin Love and the rest of the crew, and he hit the last shot of the game in Game 7, and we all know the comeback story there with Cleveland being down 3-1 and coming back to win that series and to ultimately win the championship with that shot after the LeBron block. Or is he going to be remembered for not taking the shot, which is not a basketball shot, but the COVID vaccination, because as of right now, he is unvaccinated, and with weekly updates on the scenario of what the team is doing, the Brooklyn Nets, that is, with Kyrie, it went from him not being able to play in home games because of in-state laws, which also would mean that he would miss some games in California with the LA teams and the Sacramento and Golden State, as well as the Knicks team games because of still being in New York City. So he's missing already a handful of games there. But then it came out a few days later, or almost a week later, can't remember how far apart that was, that he was going to be missing the entire season, perhaps, if he doesn't get vaccinated. They're going to hold him out. So that's going to be, I don't know what to make of that exactly, because it's like they're doing what they need to do to protect themselves and to protect Kyrie, because if he's going to be in buildings where there's going to be more fans than last year to obviously begin the season and throughout the season, then you don't want Kyrie to get sick, right, and risk getting, health-wise not being able to play basketball anymore if it came to that, or for the rest of the season anyway. So to keep your investment, you need to perhaps keep him in the most health-conscious type of environment from that purpose as far as a business purpose. to have him stay healthy and stay away from the teammates as well, I guess. I think he did a practice. I'm not sure how that is still going, if he's still doing the practices, but on Kyrie's end there, I'm not sure what he's, thinking as far as going into the season, if he's going to perhaps at some point get the vaccination. That is a personal matter. So this has nothing to do with the man's personality as far as what his personal thoughts are on the vaccination. This is just purely a fan's perspective from basketball related. So once again, just want to throw that out there. It's nothing to do with his personal life. But at the same time, when it comes to basketball and when it comes to fans, Kyrie, this is what you asked for in the scenario of you were in Cleveland with LeBron James. So we're taking it back. You were in Cleveland with LeBron. You won a championship. Then you wanted out of Cleveland because you didn't want to be in the shadow of LeBron James. So you leave Cleveland through a trade and you end up in Boston. First year in Boston, you were shorthanded. Second year in Boston, you got hurt and the team did better without you. Then you leave Boston and then you go to Brooklyn. And then there in Brooklyn, the first year, Kevin Durant's hurt. I get that. And then last year with COVID and James Harden being hurt, you're missing some time and Kevin Durant not playing all the games. Now this year, you're setting it up. You're wanting to be in this scenario where you're under the criticism of the spotlight because you are such a transcendent player that your talent is going to put yourself out there. It's going to give you extra exposure as an athlete, as an NBA player. You have a Nike Signature Series shoe line, so you can't act like, well, I don't know why why they are in my business. People are in your business because your business is already out there to some extent. Now, yes, this is a personal matter as far as whether or not you want to get the vaccine, but when it comes to basketball and a fan's perspective, a business perspective, you contribute to that. So whatever decisions that you make that affect your basketball, your professional life, people are going to scrutinize and people are going to link the two together. It's just simple as that. We don't go around asking such and such players, when did you get vaccinated? What shot did you get? If they're vaccinated and that was their private matter on what shot they decided to get. I don't see anybody out there in the press saying, hey, LeBron, or hey, Bradley Beal, Bradley Beal is a bad example because I don't think he's vaccinated at the moment. But hey, Andrew Wiggins, what shot did you decide to get after you got vaccinated? It's just a matter of, are you vaccinated or not? And will you be playing home games or not? And then ultimately he got the vaccination shot, so he's eligible. But yeah, Kyrie, without you taking the vaccination shot, people are looking at this team like, okay, is this still a championship caliber team? And if so, why do we need Kyrie in the first place? You get to all these other what if scenarios, all these other questions of Kyrie should still be on the Brooklyn Nets? Should they look to trade him? What value can they get for him? If any value, because I actually have that on here, I think. The problems for Brooklyn is that I think if they wanted to find a trade for Kyrie, how much would he be worth on the open market? But at the same time, you have to deal with the personality of Kevin Durant. Does Kevin Durant want Kyrie traded? Probably not. According to what they say out there, is that he and Kyrie have a great bond together. So you don't want to ruin that aspect, I would assume, in regards to having Kyrie and Kevin Durant split up when they both made the decision to go to Brooklyn in the same offseason year. So that is something to think about. And I'm kind of wanting to do this podcast very quickly, so sorry if I don't go into as much detail as normal, but I'm trying to get some detail out there. But let me go into the other part about this scenario with Brooklyn. So what are the benefits to Kyrie in this situation for Brooklyn? Well, let me tell you this. From a fantasy basketball perspective, if you like to play fantasy basketball, or if you like to do wagers for, let's say, like FanDuel or Sportsbook or something like that, this could be great news for people who are rooting for like a James Harden or Kevin Durant, or if you're, like I said, playing fantasy basketball and you drafted one of those guys. Because in my opinion, last year when I was talking about the big three, I felt like they would have better success in segments of two. That would be any combination of two of them out of the big three. And James Harden and Kevin Durant, in my opinion, would be probably the best combination of the big three. As far as you talking about the other combinations being Harden and Kyrie or Kevin Durant and Kyrie, I think the Harden and Durant combination works the best. And they can perform at a level that is still super elite. Not that they couldn't perform at an elite level with all three of them. That's just more sharing of the ball for people who like to have the ball in their hands a little bit more. But without that, you can get a lot of fantasy value out of these players because it's just two of them. James Harden's played with other superstars. Kevin Durant has played with other superstars. But when it's only two of them and the rest of your team is, so-so, not to downplay any of those players, but no other superstars on the court or even all-stars at that point on the court, these guys should be very fantasy relevant, in my opinion. And the performance levels when they're both or even on the court solo as an individual should be great. They should actually have a boost in value versus as if they had the big three there in whole. So that is a benefit there if you want to look at it from a fan's perspective. And I think with that chemistry there of those two mixed with everybody else in Brooklyn, that you could see a different Brooklyn Nets team that actually might have somewhat of a stronger bond there because you're not hesitant and you're not forced to look at the issue or how to avoid the issue of Kyrie not being present for games because he has some other thing that's going on to a certain capacity outside of the NBA that is more important to him than basketball. Now, once again, this is not to rag on his personal life, but this is how it's perceived and this is how it's put out there. There are other things in Kyrie Irving's life that are more important than basketball on a regular basis, not family, not a pregnancy, not just such and such has COVID, like Karl Anthony Towns situation. This is things that obviously he did not have to tell the public at all, but it's happening more and more with him than most other individuals in the NBA, especially at his caliber of a player. Now, let's say this happened to Joe Ingles or give me a bench player. Grayson Allen. Nobody's really going to be talking about Grayson Allen in the context that they're talking about Kyrie Irving when it comes to, okay, he's missing a bunch of games for personal reasons. So all of this, Kyrie is bringing this on himself, and if there are other issues that he wants to discuss that's outside of basketball, you do have a platform where you can discuss that and use your platform to your advantage. Now, if it's truly strictly personal, then yeah, you do have to weigh what you value most as far as your balance. If you can't balance basketball and your personal life to the point where you're still a professional, then that's when it becomes a problem. So luckily the Brooklyn Nets are working that out with him, and I think this takes a lot of stress off the team and hopefully off of management a little bit and hopefully off of Kyrie in general, and until things change for the better where he could play or whatever that's going to happen in the future. So like I said, mentally it takes the stress off. So I'm done with Brooklyn right there. Let me move on from the Brooklyn Nets because there's so much more you can talk about when it comes just to the Nets in general and the whole Kyrie situation. But all of this has just been one big buildup, and that took up most of my page on the first page. So hopefully these other acts aren't as big. So let's go on to the West Side. And on the West Coast here, we're going to be talking about LeBron and company. And obviously the main thing since this big trade went down where the Lakers acquired Russell Westbrook. So I'm going to start where I left off, which is where the Bucks won the championship. So didn't cover anything in free agency, preseason, none of that. So fresh take right here. So that trade with Russell Westbrook, I think it's awesome because I'm a huge Russell Westbrook fan and a LeBron fan. So to have them both on the court at the same time is awesome. I hope I get to see them in person as far as going to a game. That would be really, really cool. And I think when it comes to the team chemistry, because I've been asked this question several times, do I think that the Lakers have what it takes to make it work with these type of personalities, these type of personnel? Westbrook likes to have the ball in his hands a lot. LeBron likes to have his hands on the ball a lot. And as a whole, the Lakers are the oldest team in the league by far on average. Can this work for the Lakers? And I'm gonna go ahead and say this, and I've said it before to people that know me, that yes, this can work. will this come off clean and look good? No, it's not going to look good the whole time. It's going to be rough, and I expect it to be rough because that's things they have to work through. You rather have where you work through these scenarios, work through the rough times, work through, okay, what are the weaknesses? What are our exposures to other teams? You want to work on that early. You want to work on that so when it comes down to post All-Star game, those last couple months before the postseason, that you're getting refined, that you know your strengths. Yes, you have weaknesses, but your strengths outweigh the weaknesses in the manner that, yeah, you could still win games. If you're not as fast as some of the younger teams, you can beat the younger teams in a different way. You can beat the veteran skilled teams. That's going to give you more skilled competition outside of just raw talent because they play more organized basketball instead of individual basketball. Things like that you can work on. So yes, they could put it together. LeBron's a heck of a leader, one of the best floor generals in the league. Phoenix Suns have one of their own with Chris Paul there, but when it comes to handling personalities, I mean, he made it work with Dwight Howard the first go around 2 years ago when the Lakers won the championship for 2020. So why would this be such a huge issue that it would not be possible? It's just, what are the odds that it could work? I mean, worst case scenario, in a situation like this versus last year with Andre Drummond, the situation with Andre Drummond was that he was traded in the middle of the season, or he was bought out and then signed with the Lakers mid-season. LeBron and AD were still missing multiple games, a lot of time there. So he was trying to acclimate to the team and to the culture, as well as trying to figure out mentally, where is my position going to be when all three of us are playing together, when LeBron and AD return to the court. And then they only came together for a handful of games before the play-in tournament and before the postseason began. So this is a totally different scenario because you get to see, in hopes, the whole season of this working. And then worst case scenario, you still have the option of trading Russell Westbrook if you need to, but I don't think that's going to be a scenario that would be explored. I think they're going to figure it out. I think Russell Westbrook takes criticism very well, and I think LeBron and AD can deal with the criticism that they might get from Russ too. So, he stated when he had his initial interview as a Laker, and he talked about how his job there is to make it easier on LeBron and AD. So when anybody has that type of mentality, and it goes for the rest of the veterans that signed up for the team, when you have that mentality of championship or bust, or, we know our purpose, whatever role I need to take, we will figure that out along the way until the point that we trust each other. We become a team that is championship caliber because mentally that's where we want to be. You look at Carmelo Anthony on the team where he's talking about, I don't care if I'm starting or coming off the bench. We have one goal in mind. He's being straight up 100% real, and that's what I like about Carmelo Anthony in this situation. It's different than when he played for us, when he played for OKC, when he came in there with the hopes of being a starter and then got benched and didn't know how to handle that role. And then, unfortunately he was out of the league for a year or so, and the Portland Trailblazers picked him up and he bounced back. So he's accepting the role, come and go of being a starter or not being a starter, or just irregularly being a starter. I think he's fine with that. And he stated that, the end goal is the championship. So if the Lakers don't make it to the finals at least, then it's a bust for them. But we're going to see hopefully a different LeBron and different AD because of a longer offseason than what they had the previous year, and with them not going as deep into the playoffs this past season, they get that extra rest time. So they should be, definitely in better health, better conditioning than last year. But like I said, I wouldn't be shocked if it starts off kind of hot, kind of rocky, hot and cold, and then by All-Star game after that, they kind of go on a little bit of some streaky runs there. But I think at the beginning, just a bold prediction, I wouldn't be shocked if they lost the first game, which would be against Golden State on Tuesday. So if they lose that game, then, so be it. It's not the end of the world. It's just, okay, what can we learn from this? How bad was it? If it was a bad loss in that capacity. So we'll see what that is, but I just want to do a quick take on that. Oh, and a couple other things to look at outside of the personalities and all that stuff. The only other thing that might stand out for me as a prediction going into the season would be load management, which they might need to do more load management because this might also be a scenario where this team functions pretty well as far as duos. Not saying they will perform better as duos, but they can get away with winning some of these games. We see what Russell Westbrook has done in the past as far as being on, like, even the Thunder with Paul George, just having one other, quote unquote superstar with them, and what he did last year with the Washington Wizards and how they had been out of the playoffs for quite a few years and was able to make that push, even having lots of turnovers and starting out very bad when he first came to the Wizards and they didn't look like a playoff team, and then eventually get him into the play-in tournament. So that to me was a success there, because he got them to where they needed to be. Sorry, I don't think, did they make the playoffs? I cannot remember now. I know they at least made the play-in tournament. I think they made the playoffs. And leave in the comments if they didn't make the playoffs. But yeah, so they're in the position that they needed to be when they acquired him. They wanted to be better, and he made the team better. So that's just final. So, all in all, the point of having Russell Westbrook on the Lakers is to make the Lakers better, right? So we'll see if that goal gets accomplished. So let's move on to Act 3, going back to the East Coast, and we're going to Philly, and we have Simmons versus the Sixers. So, wow, there's a lot going on there as of the making of this podcast episode here. The last that we heard was that Ben Simmons did show up, did get tested for COVID, and I guess he was negative for that. He didn't play in the last preseason game. He was sat out due to conditioning. So, is he playing this year for the Sixers? It sounds like he will be playing for the Sixers at some point, if not opening night. That's going to be interesting because, locker room. Or how much locker room issues are we going to see? Are people going to be on eggshells? Are people going to just come out? How is Joel Embiid going to respond to Ben Simmons? And how will Ben Simmons take criticism if somebody's like, look, Ben, we understand what you went through, but all in all, what we said wasn't a lie. You have to be better. You have to be more confident. Can he handle that? Because that is the bold truth. The Sixers, which I had completely forgot, were like the number one team in the East last year. So regular season Ben Simmons versus playoff Ben. So, the year before we had regular season PG and then playoff P. You got playoff B here. Like, we can't have that anymore. So if you're the Sixers, you're kind of wanting Ben Simmons to have a whole different type of mentality. And the Sixers, yeah, maybe a slight adjustment, but this is mainly on Simmons here. So whatever effort Simmons wants to bring is going to be the outcome of Philly. And wouldn't it be shocking if they actually make it further in the playoffs this year than they did last year? Maybe this could happen if they have some better chemistry to start off, where everybody is humbled by what's happened and they realize that, hey, we can't put so much pressure on Ben Simmons because he's not that type of player. And then vice versa for Ben Simmons. I can't expect to be a leader of this team because I don't make the best decisions for the team. So, both sides can be accountable there, and Doc Rivers definitely has to do a job of managing that. And then, like I said, how do we correct this Ben Simmons problem here? How does this affect the team to where they can actually play better than they did? Like I said, if they were trying to make it deeper into the playoffs, obviously if they have Ben Simmons and they at least have the talent they had last year, we're expecting them to make the playoffs in the East. But, there's a lot of other teams that added more talent, especially the Bulls this year. And then not to mention the Celtics are getting better, but they took a step back and not doing what I thought they were going to do last season during the middle of the season before the trade deadline. But regardless, you have teams that are getting better around you, but you were the number one team in the East last year, so Philly should definitely make the playoffs this year. But in my opinion, the way to help to correct this problem, especially in the playoffs, is to take Ben Simmons out of the point guard position and put him at the 4. Embiid shoots threes. Stretch him out. He will be out there on the perimeter, and they can work the inside-outside game. Ben Simmons can also make plays from the paint. We look at Jokic, where he can make plays from all over the court. Ben Simmons can do that. He just cannot create his own jump shot outside of the perimeter. But he's great at attacking the basket. He gets most of his points in the paint. Why can't we use Ben Simmons as a power forward, a point forward, in the sense that he is actually in the forward position playing the point? We put him at a point guard, you're vulnerable because you're susceptible to him being out there on the perimeter and being wide open, and he's not going to take any three-point shots. So unless that change, big ups to the Bucks and the Bucks fans. Shout out to the Feeling Lucky podcast crew over there. To Giannis, because it looks like he's taking more threes this year confidently in the preseason. And that's one of the things I said that if he works on, that can only get better. Like last year, what we saw with him taking shots. I know some people were like, Giannis shouldn't take shots. There were certain times he shouldn't have taken 3-point shots. But in the playoffs, if you're up big or if it's the first half, take them because he can make 3-point shots. They just did not look the prettiest. But now they're looking a little bit better. They're looking more refined. And if you give this guy more time, more reps in the regular season, if he could put up 4 to 5 3-point shot attempts a game, by the end of the regular season, who knows what kind of Giannis this would be. He might be able to average 2 3-pointers made a game. And that's huge for a guy who isn't known for 3-point shooting. And you're talking about spacing the floor even more for him. That's just amazing. So kudos to him for staying hungry and continuing his success as an athlete and as an NBA player and as a superstar and as a leader of his team, to make yourself better and accountable and not just depend on your teammates to do all the other lifting where there's things that you can work on to make your team better as a whole. So shout out to them, and why not the Bucks make it back to the finals again? That's very well possible. So let's move on from the Simmons problems as if we were the Philadelphia Sixers and we traded them. So we're going to the last act. This is Act 4. This is called Dame's future, and not as relevant as it was, let's say, 2 months ago when the Olympics was happening and there was questions or things being thrown out there in the rumor mill that Damian Lillard had requested a trade and was unhappy with being in Portland. So it turns out that he's okay in Portland. He just expects more of the Portland Trailblazers organization to provide more help, and he has a right to, because why would you think that that team is going to get any better on its own? There's not really that much young developing talent to the caliber that there's a next all-star or superstar on that team that is highly noticeable that's going to take them over the top the following year once he got better. This isn't like a Jaylen Brown on the team here. This is the team that's aging into their prime or already in their primes when you consider players like maybe Nurkic and Dame himself, obviously, that, hey, Dame's doing what he can, but he does need the help. I know CJ was hurt last year, but if you're looking at the combination of CJ and Dame, like, that can only get you so far. So with them not making any major moves, they did add a few pieces, and I can't remember off the top of my head, to the roster. That should definitely help. But outside of that, we'll see what Portland does. But ultimately, I mean, if you're the Portland Trailblazers, right? And even if you make the playoffs, if you're looking at the team and you're like, well, that's a playoff team, they're going to make the playoffs, right? Is that what Dame is really wanting? You just want to be a playoff contending team as far as, well, we made it to the first round, or we almost made it to the second round. That's not what he's wanting. So I think this might be the last year for Portland to really do something. I mean, it's not over just because of the off season, but if something needs to go down at the trade deadline, then something needs to go down at the trade deadline, or this man next year might be like, okay, you know what? Y'all aren't making any major changes around me. Like, I like the team as far as what we got, but this is not my end goal here. It's just to be a playoff team every year that gets booted in the first round or barely make it into the second round, whatever you want to call it. I mean, this guy's wanting to compete, and at some point he's going to feel like, okay, I'm, still has some prime age in me as far as athleticism and playmaking and contribution that I can carry a team, but I can only carry a team so much. I want to be traded. So then there would be time for Portland to probably look at a rebuild. But are there any possible scenarios out there? I mean, outside of, the Simmons for Dame, but Portland doesn't want to trade Dame. What happened with that trade for Simmons and McCollum, I'm not sure if that would have worked out the best for Portland. Having Simmons there with Dame, sure, it probably wouldn't have made the team worse, in the sense that if you use Simmons at the 4 again, like I had mentioned, but is that going to make your team better? I don't know about that. I think they need to look at something in trade packages. Maybe they need to trade Nurkic. Maybe they need somebody else on the wing there. Maybe it's not a big guy problem. Maybe they can just stand to have an okay big, but upgrade their positions elsewhere. Or maybe they do need to package something for a better big. You know, right now I can't think of anything off the top of my head to trade, but this was something that I did think of before Kyrie Irving's value went downhill, and that was, what about trading Kyrie Irving for Damian Lillard? Now, the Nets would love that, but Portland, not so much, because what if he can't play for them, or what if he doesn't show up? So that idea kind of shut out the window. I was thinking about it initially, and then more news had just broken out about Kyrie, so I was just like, okay, I don't even know if I should mention this anymore, but I did want to say this, stick it out here and say it because I had it on my mind, and like I said, it's the first time I'm podcasting in several months, so just wanted to let you know what was rumbling and building up through my head as far as different scenarios. But there's got to be something out there. Put in the comments, what would you like to see added to that Portland Trailblazers team, whether it be somebody in a certain position, or an exact player that maybe go to ESPN and try their trade machine and see what works out there as far as getting this player to this team for this amount of money, and then having the Blazers get this person in return. So it's going to be interesting to see, but the ball is technically in the Trailblazers court as an organization, because with Dame already being there, and he's a player that would stay committed, but he's just asking for more talent. So you can't blame him there, because he just wants better results from the organization, better results from the team. So I don't think it's any issues with CJ, in my opinion, from the way he was playing last year. I mean, he basically should have been like an all-star, but then injuries happened. So we'll see what he brings to the table this year. I think he can continue where he left off, hopefully, being 100% since that injury happened. So let's see what happens there. But yeah, once again, it's going to be an exciting season, 75th anniversary season. So, things are going to be plastered out there all over the place as far as advertisement, like it wasn't already. And, I like to see what kind of jerseys and whatnot that's going to be coming out for the season. Hopefully they bring back like some Christmas gear. That'd be kind of cool, I think. In my opinion, I did like some of those Christmas Day jerseys, or the themes that they did. And I'm sure it gives more marketing sales for teams and for Nike in general, because people will buy them. So I could see that happening again, but it'd be cool to see them back. And I'm interested in the Christmas Day games as well. I think those are going to be some fun matchups, but, first day, opening night, you have the Bucks and the Nets. I would say I'm going to take the Bucks on that one, in my opinion. I think KD is going to be hungry, but Giannis is going to be hungry. And that's going to be an exciting game to watch, because both of those guys are going to go hard. So it's going to be based off what are the other guys going to bring. How much of an improvement has Chris Middleton made over the summer? Let's see what he has done. James Harden should be a lot healthier than what he was last postseason. So let's see what happens there. And hopefully he's in better conditioning than he was last year when he joined the Nets. But, they still have Jrue Holiday out there for the Bucks as well. So I think the Bucks can take that. And then game 2 of the opening night, the Lakers versus the Golden State Warriors. I'm actually thinking that the Warriors could win that game, and probably will win that game. I think that's a home game for the Lakers, but like I said, this doesn't mean that the Lakers are going to be terrible. I think it's just going to be a learning experience. But I'm still hoping to see exciting basketball. I don't want to see like a dozen turnovers from Russell Westbrook. Like I don't want to see that, but I do know he's going to get turnovers. That's just the way he plays the game, and I understand that type of game pace. I like watching it, so I'm not mad at it at all. From a fan's perspective, sometimes it's not always about winning. It's sometimes about the enjoyment of watching, because it is entertaining. So I do want to see that game and see what the results would be as far as the big three working together, win or lose. So yeah, if you're watching this, thank you for watching it on YouTube. Please consider giving us a subscribe if you aren't subscribed. And if you are subscribed, please share the video. Give us a like if you like the video. And if you're listening to this video, wait a minute, let me go back. If you're watching this video, you can also listen to it on anchor.fm and Spotify under KISH YZ, KISH_YZ. Now, if you are listening to it on the audio only podcast, then you can obviously go to our YouTube page and check out the video of the podcast. Or if you don't want to check out the video of the podcast, you can check out the videos on their shoes, which, you know, kind of generated through podcasting, because it started out doing shoes in regards to NBA players, but have basically branched out into other sneakers. So, you know, definitely check that out for takes on other footwear as well. And, you know, find us on YouTube under KISH YZ, KISH space YZ. And then also, you know, Twitter and Instagram handles, both the same, KISH YZ, KISH_YZ. Check out the Instagram for photos and, yeah, basically just photos, no videos right now of the shoes that we're doing on YouTube. Putting photos out there on wardrobes to coordinate with the shoes. And then, you know, hit us up on Twitter, where I basically do kind of more NBA talk stuff on Twitter. So I haven't tweeted in a while, but with the season going, I'm sure I'll be tweeting out probably during and after games and whatnot. So Twitter and the podcast go together, and Instagram and the shoes go together. But all still KISH YZ, kicking in the second half, or when I'm doing the shoes here lately, I've been saying kicks in the second half. So either way, thank you for joining our community and for listening and for watching. So everybody, once again, thank you for kicking it in the second half. Please give us a like and a subscribe and a follow and a friend request. So until next time, peace and love.